I cannot begin this sermon without referring to the deeply moving images we've witnessed over this past week of the hostages freed from Gaza. The 4 young women released last Shabbat, Karina Ariev, Daniela Gilboa, Nama Levy, and Liri Albag. The 5 Thai agricultural workers who were released on Thursday, together with Agam Berger, Gadi Moses, and Abel Yehud. Today, 3 more hostages, I understand, have been released: Yardain Bibas, Keith Samuel Siegel, and Ofer Calderon. Yardain, whose wife and 2 infant children were also taken into captivity, and whose fate is unknown. And Keith, whose brother we met at Kibbutz Gezer in Israel during a rabbinic visit last February. It is poignant to be reading a parashah which includes the first steps of freedom taken by the Israelites as they departed from the land of Egypt, as we wait for the remaining hostages to take their first steps home to their families. We will undoubtedly learn more about the experiences and the fate of the hostages as time goes on. Many were held in underground tunnels, in harrowing circumstances, without natural light, unable to wash, unfed, and in isolation. The images of Abel Yehud and Gadi Moses, held by the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and jostled by hundreds of men and boys yelling and screaming, waving their guns and filming with their phones, will stay with me. Abel's pale, drawn face, her dark eyes full of dread and apprehension. However much one tries to remain optimistic, how can such scenes of chaos and noisy triumphalism be a catalyst for hope? The darkness that envelops the Egyptians stands out from the other 9 plagues. It is somehow in nature different. Each of the first 8 is a plague that pollutes and ruins the environment. The Nile turns to blood. Egypt swarms with frogs. Dust turns to lice. Swarms of insects invade the land. A pestilence attacks the animals. Soot brings about the affliction of boils. Hail rains down destruction on the land. And locusts ravage the fields and fruit of the trees left by the hail. But the darkness that shrouds the land of Egypt is a darkness of which the Torah says, puzzlingly, v'yamesh choshech. The Hebrew word, of course, for darkness is choshech, and we come across it in the opening verses of Bereshit, the book of Genesis, v'choshech al panei tehom. Darkness was over the face of the waters, the place without light, without any created thing, is not only dark, it is chaotic, without form, a black hole of emptiness. But the darkness of the 9th plague is different, v'yamesh choshech. It's not entirely clear what the word v'yamesh means, and there is a discussion among the medieval commentators, not always in agreement with each other. It appears, according to some, to come from a root mashash, mem shin shin, which means to feel or to grope. Perhaps my father will feel me, says Jacob to his mother, using the same word as he prepares to deceive his brother and father of the blessing reserved for the elder son. He'll discover through feeling me that I am smooth-skinned while my brother is hairy. In Deuteronomy, in the long section known as the curses, the terrifying punishments of madness, blindness, and dismay will be inflicted on the Israelites if they disobey God's commandments. V'hayita memashesh b'tzohorayim, ka'asher yemashesh ha'iver ba'afela. You shall grope, memashesh, at noon as a blind man gropes in the dark, evoking the image of one in complete darkness, feeling their way around the room. And the same verbal root is used of the blind Samson, brought into the sanctuary, asking a boy to place him between the pillars so that he can feel or grope for them. This darkness, says Rashi, the medieval commentator, is a darkness more dark than the dark of night. The dark of night, he translates this phrase, grew darker still. He understands the root, not meaning to feel or to grope, but to mean to grow dark, indicating that the darkness was so thick, it was doubled and redoubled until it became a darkness of substance, mamash. Ibn Ezra describes the darkness as a fog so thick that Egypt could feel it, linking it with the root of the word to grope. The darkness, says Nachmanides, was not just the absence of light, but it extinguished every light in existence, just as in deep mines and places of intense darkness, no light can exist. It may be, he says, that such a dense fog could actually be felt. The Midrash embellishes on the biblical text, describing the darkness as an unnaturally thick cloud, preventing the Egyptians from getting up or seeing one another. They had to stop up their mouths and nostrils to make sure they did not breathe this gas, for to do so would be fatal. Hasidic masters, however, chose to read this verse not in its literal sense, but metaphorically. What does the Torah mean, they asked when it says people could not see each other in this darkness? It means, they said, that when an individual does not see another person, doesn't want to see them, there is darkness in the world. The worst form of darkness is when a person refuses to look at a fellow human being and finds themselves unable to form any kind of connection with their suffering. All feeling, says Rabbi Yitzchak Meir Alter, becomes blunted and paralyzed. And when the Torah states that no one could get up from their place, what it really means is that no one had any strength to resist or protest against what was wrong in the world. No one could muster themselves to speak the truth or to live by spiritual as opposed to material values. These last 16 months have been among some of the darkest times in our own lifetime as Jews. We have been deeply shaken by the events that have taken place in Israel and Gaza. Some of us have not wanted to see the other in this conflict. Others have only seen the other. For some, feelings are too raw. For others, compassion is blunted and paralyzed. We have lived through the darkness of a war to which there seems to be no permanent end. But the release of the hostages are pinpricks of light. To see them reunited with their families has restored tiny specks of hope in the darkness. And Judaism is not a faith of pessimism. Liberal Judaism specifically compels us to turn towards the world and to affirm the world and our role in being a light to the nations. Rabbi Leo Beck, who lived through the darkest of all times and knew and understood adversity, believed that the moral task was not beyond his doing. We are bound, he said, by the ethics of prophetic Judaism, and by our faith in God, who stands as guarantor for its redemptive value. It is this embrace of the world, our faith, and affirmation of our role in the world as Jews, that makes Judaism a faith of moral optimism and hope. This is the essence of our ethical monotheism. In a few moments, I will invite Anna and Kate to bring their little daughter, Phoebe, up onto the bimah so that we can welcome her into the community, invoke God's blessing upon her, and give her her Hebrew name, which Nikki's already referred to. Her English name, well, it's her Greek name really, Phoebe, means bright, shining one. Phoebe is the moon goddess in the Greek pantheon, and her Hebrew name is a direct translation, Ori, which means my light. I know that she has lit up your lives and the lives of your family already. May the world be illumined by the light of Phoebe's presence, by her good deeds and kind words, and may we all nurture hope and optimism for calm and peace in the days and weeks ahead. Amen.